Wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, hello, welcome back to Happy Acres. It is it is actually the last day in September, or as we call it around here, Sweattember. It is the last day of Sweattember and the first week of Hottober. And we're starting a new project this week, and it's a project that I'm expecting it will take multiple weeks. These little 1 week kits are nice, but it's like popcorn. You eat them and you build them and they're nice, but you don't get as much satisfaction out of them as something you can really take your time and do. And this next project hopefully will be at least a couple of weeks, and it's something I've been looking forward to doing. One of the kits I brought back from IPMS. I'm still in need of some materials for it, some lighting kits. I'm waiting for it, so I can do some preliminary stuff while that stuff comes in. So without any further ado, let's make the introductions. It is the 500 scale Yamato from Star Blazers. Now, I have a weird history with this particular show, and it may not be this particular iteration. This is Star Blazers 2199 that this kit is referenced from. But I remember watching original Star Blazers at a weird time, because it was in college, I remember, and for some strange reason it aired like at 7:30 in the morning. It was a weird and I got hooked on it because it was like a soap opera. But it was a weird time. You get up, you get your breakfast or whatever, and your school doesn't start for a while when you're in college, so you're flipping around, and I hit this Star Blazers thing, and next thing you know, I'm watching this every morning, and I'm starting to schedule my morning around it, and of course the roommate has to watch it at the same time, or at least know that it's going on, and before you know it, it starts working its way down the hall. It's like the people that I know, I start talking about it, next thing you know, it got to be where you could walk down the hallway and see all these college kids watching Star Blazers. So that was kind of fun. But let me introduce you to this thing if you're not aware of it. It's a 500 scale. It is, and I have to admit I've cheated. I've taken some of the trees out of the bags, and I've been playing with the connections of some of the parts, because it's a Bandai kit. It's going to snap together, and you're going to be able to unsnap it and take it apart and put it together. But this is a chunk of the major hull with the wonderful two-tone paint. Of course, it's a Bandai kit, so it's going to be cast in color for the most part, but with the deck on it and all that, it gets to be a pretty sizable kit. And it's going to go on one of the long shelves that I had put up just recently. But for one strange thing, and here's the strange thing. The windows, here are the instructions. The windows are famously green. I mean, the bridge windows and the side windows here, and the windows on the lights on either sides of the guns, they're all green. And yet Bandai casts all of the clear parts in clear rather than clear green, and this is kind of mystifying to me, because Bandai usually doesn't look for any excuse not to cast their parts in as many colors as possible. So I'm kind of curious why they didn't make a tree of the light green pieces. Now, grant you, all of the clear parts in this, like this part that goes back on the engine, would not be green, but since there seems to be a couple different trees of clear colors, why they didn't make one tree of the green parts and then, segregate the other clear parts onto another one. But that's neither here nor there. It just means I need to get green bulbs, and I have some green bulbs. I actually have a lighting kit coming for this that has not arrived yet. It's the old Madman modeling kit, and as many of you know, Ralph at Tenant Controls kind of, absorbed Madman's products, but it has not shown up in his inventory yet. So I chased one down off of the Cult TV Man site, where he still had some of the Madman packaged branded products, and it's got the Yamato light set, which not only carries all of the lighting that honestly I thought would be in the kit. When I picked up the kit, I thought the Bandai, because I had built their Perfect Grade Falcon and some of their other larger kits, they usually would include the lighting. Well, this one does not include the lighting. It includes instructions for putting the lighting in at some point, but of course a lot of that's in Japanese and I can't read it. But does not include the lighting modules themselves. Now, I went and did some research, and I can get the little pucks that have an LED and a switch and a battery on it. But that's a lot of going in and, you know, turning on multiple modules and all that, which is going to be kind of a headache if I put this up on the shelf and want to be able to flick all the lights on at one time. But the Madman lighting kit takes care of all of the majority of the big internal lighting. The lights for the conning towers, the flickering light for the wave motion engine, the lighting for the two lower engines, and it most importantly has a effect for the wave motion gun at the front, which is what you really need. I mean, building a Yamato and not lighting up the wave motion gun is sort of like building the Falcon and not lighting the back engine. I mean, it's the defining characteristic of this. If you ask me, the defining characteristic of the Yamato is the wave motion gun at the front. So I'll be getting a lighting kit to do that, but I'm also going to I'm going to because I want to. It is the some of the smaller lights that go on either side of the guns. There is no provision in the instructions for lighting those, so I think I am going to. I know I'm going to. I just have to go get some. I don't have enough. I have to go get some more from Evans Lighting, where I get my SM LEDs. And I'm going to be doing that to augment the lighting kit that comes with it so that I can light up those little guns, because the area is big enough for it. There's enough room to chase wiring. I think we can add some extra value to the kit by lighting those up. And they make a very nice green LED, and I won't have to worry about trying to paint these evenly. If I can put green LEDs behind it, then I don't have to worry about painting these. And that's the basic game plan. Now, I'll try to do up, there's lots of little details like turrets and guns and all that kind of stuff that I could be putting together and kind of sub-assembling and putting aside while I'm waiting for the other parts to come in. But that's the project for the next couple of weeks, so jump in, the water's fine. Oh, welcome back. It is Tuesday, and you can see the parts are largely still in the box. I have been pulling them out and cleaning them up because they do take a bit of cleaning. There are some aggressive little nibs on here once you take them off of the sprues that they have having a hard time getting those cleaned off because they are so numerous. And I'm pondering the paint scheme because obviously it's gray and red. I don't know. There's a lot of schools of thought here. Which way do you paint it? Do you paint it realistically? Do you paint it to look like the cartoon? The anime, sorry, but in those cartoon flat colors, or do you find a weird hybrid of the two? Well, I've decided that my inspiration is going to be from the live-action movie Space Battleship Yamato. Sorry, I'm back. I had to sneeze, and you didn't want to hear that. But this was a live-action film dated from a few years ago, so I am going to be pulling this back out and checking the references on it just to see. You know, it always struck me as how much that looks like a shark on the front. Just a great white shark with an open mouth and an eyeball up there in the nose. I'm sure that's the intention, but it's just striking now how much that looks like that. I put in an order to Evans Lighting for some more green LEDs, SM LEDs, to do the green lighting in here. I've got enough to get started, and I have no doubt that the others will arrive pretty quickly and I can get on to the rest of it. So now I'm thinking of smaller things that I can go ahead and build, like gun barrels and the smaller guns and these type of things that I can put on the hull. Like I can get this sub-assembly done and get the towers built up, and then decide, well, not decide, I'll have to see what is left for me as far as where I need to chase the wiring down. And then since this is a Bandai kit and I could pull it all back apart again, Then I can pull it all back apart again and drill the holes for the wiring chases. But I need to check things like, are these decks brown? I mean, are they wooden decks, or are they gray, metal decks? Things like that. Obviously, the top is metal or this gray, and then you have this reddish color. And I'm wondering if it's just enough to put a black wash on it and wipe it off so that it kind of sits in the creases like the anime version, or should I try to go in and make plating looks and paint it more seriously like a live action thing. So I think my best course right away is to check to see how it looks in this movie, and to kind of take it from there. The temptation would be just to put it together and wipe it down with a black wash, but I don't know if that's going to give me the look I want. Welcome back. It is Wednesday and the pile still remains. I just got done watching a very comprehensive 12-part build series that a kind gentleman did online about this very kit. And what it did help me with was to help me determine what parts I can go ahead and build and put on that have no impact on whatever lighting I'm going to have to chase through here. And so I can go ahead and do that with impunity. And I think today is going to be gun day. Not Gundam, gun day. Because there are a blue million of these little anti-aircraft guns that are peppered throughout all of the hull, particularly on this part here. They go all around here. And I'm thinking I can go ahead and treat those as sub-assemblies and get them all done and put to the side so that I'm ready to pop those on the hull when I'm ready. Obviously I want to build this as a single piece, a sub-assembly unto its own. It also showed me how the lighting would work if I were to choose to use those little LED modules that Bandai offers for this kit. And I see how they work, but I'm really not interested in, once the ship is done tearing apart, tearing into it, to turn on a bunch of different little switches every time. I want to have one master switch, as it were. So all that kind of stuff is informing my thinking, but in a way that it's showing me what I don't want to do as opposed to what I do want to do. Also, I can go in and, now knowing what parts, like on the guns, I can go ahead and put the barrels in and do all of that on the big guns. So today might be gun day, and it also reconfirmed my idea that I want to do everything in green. Now, I did go back and look at that live action movie of Space Battleship Yamato, which is live action, hyper real CG ship and all that, and I decided that's not the way I want to go, because it kind of bypasses all of those iconic green lights. It's more realistically lit in the captain's cabin and on the bridge and all that kind of stuff. And I like the green lights. I think to me, they're as iconic as anything else, particularly since my fondest memory of this is from the original TV series. So I think I'm going to go not quite as dumbed down as the original anime, where everything is really flat colored. I do want to put some dimension in here and some some panel lines and some weathering and all that, but not quite hyper real either. So I'm going to build as much as I can and get ready for the wiring as it's getting ready to come in. Now, one thing I did notice, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, one thing I did notice is that the gentleman was wiring for the wave motion gun, which is something I also want to do, because that's part of the light module or the lighting system that comes from Madman. So now I know what areas I need to chase wiring through. But I noticed when he was building his that he didn't do the one really obvious thing that I thought was a no-brainer, which is basically to drill straight through the center of all of these stays, these hull sections that you put into, you know, reinforce everything. Like, I'm trying to do this with one hand, like this piece per se. He was chasing wire up and around him when, you know, I would have just taken a big old drill bit and go straight through there and just run one big wire back through. So some of that preliminary stuff, now that I can see how the wiring needs to go, I can go ahead and do. And we'll start addressing this stuff in earnest today. Okay, starting to plop some things together here. These are the spars I was talking about, the hull spacers, for lack of a better term. And yeah, the easiest thing in the world is to take a big old drill and drill a big old hole through all of those straight through, just to run your wiring. And I may have mentioned this before about the wave motion gun. It is the most iconic thing about this bloody vessel, and they've completely blocked it off. There is a clear insert in there, as you can see. It's a clear insert, but when I take this part off, this is a solid joint here. This needs to be drilled out, and the only reason you're seeing any light through there whatsoever is because of this, the light shining through the top of the plastic, which by the time you put the top deck on, disappears. So when you take out, and this is what I love about Bandai kits, because you can take them apart and put them together so many different times. They just slot together. Now I'm going to be gluing you know, the grand majority of this together, just to get away from the infamous Bandai squeak. But you can try things out many times before you glue them. But there you can see, that's the solid wall that needs to be drilled out. You got to put a big old hole there so that you can light your wave motion gun like it should be. So that's the first thing. I'm just going to run a big old drill straight down through here, through there, through there, through there. Just line it up so that I can run my wiring. Well, that wasn't fun. In the interest of full disclosure, I just cut a huge slice in my finger. Was not looking forward to doing that, so I had to stop and drop and put everything on hold while I carefully threw a big old gauze bandage on there. It's one of those things, I've done it so often, I kind of know I have an automatic, you know, emergency bag to go to, and I advise everybody else to keep one of those handy. But what I was doing when I did that to myself with this very blade, you could probably see the, no, you can't see the blood because I got to it before. That's the thing about having a really sharp blade, is that it slices really clean and you don't worry about ripping anything. Anyway, starting to cut away the front end here, and I sliced it without proper precaution. So I got a channel out here, and then I got the big drill out. The big drill to just drill through these pieces right here. They don't have to be neat, they don't have to be clean, they just have to work. So I'm going to maybe work a little bit more carefully, slowly, keeping the affected finger elevated above my heart, and maybe do things a little more slowly and carefully this time. Okay, now you can see, now that's a red LED, and it won't really be red in the final, but that's just the first one I grabbed. But now you can see that we get a clear line of sight to a light source, and we are good to go. That is just a question of, again, there. I just chewed out the front end of it there. So now you can see that I just need to drill through these bulkheads. That's the word I was looking for, bulkheads. And drill through those bulkheads to chase the wiring back towards the back. Okay, playing around with the back half of it now, and there's one very obvious spot, and that is the engine here that's going to be lit up. Let me zoom out. That's going to be lit up, and the kit calls for another LED to be stuck here with its own little on-off switch. And like I said, I'm not really interested in opening this thing up every time I want to turn on a light. So the first thing that I've got to do is I've got to cut a big hole here to chase the wiring that's going to come out of the back of this into the rest of the ship. So that I need to cut out. And then this is the open bay, and it's, I guess, meant for the there's a supplemental part that you can get for this kit that is the launch bay of all the fighters. Not gonna go to that extent on this kit, but this does make a very handy place to get in and change the battery, since it's got a door that goes right here that's meant to be removed and, you know, put on and off. It's easy to go in and turn, put a battery right there, set it in this tray, just like that. So that's where my wiring is going to go to. So I need to cut a hole in the wall that will accept the wiring. Actually, you know, there's enough room behind that wall that I can gather up all of my wiring and bring it into this area, because I also have a major chase of wiring that's going to be coming down from the bridge tower, and then I could take it all to a switch and a battery. Now this battery is going to have a switch on it that turns power on and off to the battery, but I think what I want to do is use the remote that I got from Evans, so that I can once I turn the battery on, I can play with the brightness and the dimness of the bulbs. I think that's what I want to play with. So, and then I can have a separate switch on the base to run the wave motion gun, because that's obviously not something that's going to be on all the time. I want to be able to fire that with a momentary switch. But until I get that light kit, I won't know what kind of wiring requirements that's going to need. So I'm wondering if it's, since I want to put this up on a remote shelf, I don't want to run a power cord to it. Whatever I do, I want it to have its own battery, so that I can simply switch the battery on and do what I need to do from there, and not have it dependent on running to a wall transformer. In addition to the main engine back here, the wave motion engine, we've got two sub-engines, and they also need lighting. So it starts with taking the gray insert that goes into these barrels and drilling out the back of them, and then drilling a hole in the barrel so that drilling a hole in the barrel so that that wire can go through there. It actually comes out up here, so it goes through the insert, comes out through there, and then it has to be fished up into the up into the hull, and that's what those holes are for, so that you can get this wiring through the engine up into it like that, and then into the hull. So this is the kind of work I'm doing now, because once I start putting things together, I feel it's going to go pretty quickly. Bandai kits go together pretty quickly. So all this preliminary work is what takes the time. Okay, these parts are ready to go now. I don't want to push that in there before the wiring is done, because I have a feeling that's going to go in very tight and not ever want to come out. So, and there's no real good way to poke it out or to push it out from the inside. So we're going to leave these alone until I can put the wired LED through there and push it in one and done. So now I need to get this box out of the way, because I started out here and now I'm working in like these 2 square inches. So I need to clear the decks literally and get an area where I can start working on stuff. Okay, one last series, at least for now, until I run into anything else later down the road. But one last thing of obvious holes I needed to make were for the big guns. I needed to make sure that for each of these turrets that there was a hole cut in the bottom of them that I could snake down through the bottom of that, since these just sit here and are made so that they can rotate I needed to make sure there was a big old hole for the wiring to go down through so that the wire doesn't get pinched or bound up on anything, and that's for the two side lights that shine green ahead of the guns. So I've got those accomplished. Now maybe finally I can get this table cleaned off. Okay, it's been guns, guns, guns all day today, and I've got a lot of these guys put together, and these ones go on the they go below here on the sides of the hull. These are, of course, none of these are glued down. They all can rotate, and I think I'm going to decide on a final position for them, and then I'm going to glue them down just because I don't want to endlessly play with those. These big guns here I'll probably leave positionable. Obviously, the bigger ones that have the lights in them I will, but the barrels all are posable on this, so I guess this is not only a ship model, but it is an action figure, so count that as you will. But these guns all come up, and like I said, there's a hole down in the bottom there, and I need to chase wiring for the green lights that are going to go on either side, but I don't want to put those in. I want to go ahead and I think I'm going ahead and paint whatever I'm going to paint on these before I stick those clear bits in. It'll be easier to mask the little bulbs than it will be to try to mask the entire insert. Plus I can use the tree here to spray the green on the inside of the parts that I need to spray before I put them on. There's the 6 of them right here for the 3 big guns. Okay, I'm back at it. I've redressed my wound. My bandage is smaller. I'm starting to play with the finish. And the first solution, which would be the easiest for me, is straight up Higgins ink, wiped on the panels and then wiped back off. And see whether that gives me the look that I'm shooting for, without a bunch of priming and painting and repainting. And I gotta say, it's about 60% there. I can see where I still want to add some more because too much of it's getting wiped off. So maybe it's a question of waiting longer and then before you start to wipe it off. Or maybe it's not the Higgins ink. Maybe it's the Vallejo wash, or maybe it's just a diluted down black acrylic. I don't know. I'm going to try a bunch of different things before I decide which avenue to go down. Okay, a good way to finish up the afternoon is to go in there with the green clear and just hit the insides of the clear parts that need to be painted green, and let that dry, and I'll probably come back and put another coat over top of that. The clears are tricky colors to work with. You can't always get all the coverage you want the first time out, but if you put it on too much, it starts to run and is no longer even and all of that. So these look very good, but I think I can stand to wait and put a little bit more on at maybe later on this evening. Morning, folks. It's Thursday. It's another day of work on the Yamato. And first have to start the day off with a confession of having done something stupid, which longtime viewers will know is nothing new. Either that I have done the stupid thing or that I am confessing to the stupid thing, because, at this point there's no sense trying to cover it up. We all know where that leads you today, folks. The thing that I did that was stupid is I accidentally threw away a couple of parts. And, there's only 2 types of parts I'll accidentally throw away. The very small or the very boring, which, in retrospect is not a bad subtitle for an autobiography. But here's what I did. There are 2 parts that are needed. One to go here, and one, obviously the one that goes on the other side. And what those do is they're basically access panel covers. They're a very boring part. They're just a flat piece of part of hull that go in there to cover up this hole, and I think that's only there for another version of this ship where that would be a wing that pops into that hole. Since there's no wing on this kit, that hole just needs to be covered with a flat piece of plating. and I looked all over, couldn't find it. And then I tried to find out where it would be. And this is one of the great things that Bandai does, is when they give you the chart of all the parts, tell you what runner they're on and all that kind of stuff. And here is the part. There's one right there, and there's one right there. And I can guarantee you what happens, since it is the only thing other than these two big sides of the ship that is on this, is that I snipped these parts off and promptly threw the rest away. And since that was at least one trash cycle ago, I cannot find it. I looked in the available trash that I have. It was obviously thrown away at some point before then. Luckily, like I said, they're very boring pieces. All they are is a flat piece, and I can build a new cover. That's all it has to do, and it has to go over this part. I would not have, I was thinking maybe I won't even tell people about this, see if they'll notice. But since it's going to be white and it's going to stick out against all of this gray, at least until I paint it, then I better, kind of give people a heads up of what the heck they're looking at. So I put in a little stop along the inside edge to keep it from falling through. And there is, whoops, it's the wrong one. That's the one for the other side. They are mirror images of each other, and they're flat, they're tapered, and they have a bit of a curve on it, which is why I had to put the stop in there, because I can shape the stop that's on the inside of the hole and then kind of bend the outer sheet to it and glue it down, and make this out of a flimsy enough material that it will accept that bend, and then glue it in place. And that's what I'm going to do now. But I wanted to fess up before you started seeing this white box on here and wondering what the heck that was all about. Okay, I think I've hit upon a strategy that I like. I like how that looks. I really do. So I think I've got my procedures down for the rest of the hull. And that's really, digging out my old friend, the Comart smoke. The Comart smoke over top of a German gray. German gray, no, I take that back. That's a medium gray on the hull. And then a little bit of the Tamiya smoke over top of it. I like it. Now I need to go to the hobby shop this morning here and take a look and see what I can find that will suffice for that red. The thing I'm hitting on is that I'm not getting satisfying results just weathering the bare plastic. Even though, the color is 99% of what I want it to be, I'm going to have to cover it over with an exact duplicate of that color just so that I can do the weathering, because the weathering won't stick to the bare Tamiya plastic as well as it will stick to paint. So that's the boat I find myself in, both literally and figuratively. So let's take care of that issue. I'm waiting for the mail to arrive today. Hopefully I'll have some lighting in it, but we don't know. Fantastic news, everybody. It's mail call. Mail has come. It's Thursday. This is the lighting I have ordered from Evans Design. I ordered that on Tuesday. That is 2-day delivery from Colorado to North Carolina. And I ordered it, I think, fairly late in the day. So, again, Evans Lighting, Model Train Software, the place to go for your SM LEDs. Now, these are going to be the green SM LEDs that I want to put in the big guns. So, oh goody, I get to start doing some wiring today. And the other thing is coming from Steve, Cult TV Man. It is the lighting kit from Madman. I haven't even opened it up yet, so I'm going to be investigating that today. Big doings, big doings. Okay, well, I've started reading through the instructions, and I have read enough to know that I've got to basically scrap all of my plans, because this board, this is a Madman Lighting. This is not Ralph. This is not anybody that I have used in quite a while. And the one thing that it is asking for is a 12-volt power supply. either a 12-volt battery pack or a 12-volt wall DC transformer. So I don't even know if it can run on 9 volts or run satisfactorily on 9 volts. It wants a 12-volt 1 amp setup. So my thoughts of putting it on a shelf and running it from a battery may be for naught. And it also depends on using quite a bit of fiber optic, which I am inky about. And we're just going to have to back up and punt and see how well I can do with this. It's got a unique way of wiring things. It uses a wire wrap. Now, I'm not going to use a wire wrap. I'm going to go ahead and solder, because if I use a wire wrap, I know the wires are going to unwrap at some point and they won't be secure. And he's also not using any resistors, but is putting things in series. And I have always wired parallel, so that's going to be interesting too. Because parallel, I can just, wire up a bunch of bulbs and then stick them where they need to go. But series means I got to run the wiring from one to the next, and I'm not exactly happy with doing that. So we'll see. I think looks like I might need to do some cleanup here and see what these are the bulbs that are going to be needed. This is the wee board, and this is the bundle of fiber optic. So back up, scratch the head, and see what actually is going to be done here. Okay, I've been thinking a lot about names recently, and how sometimes they are truer to life than perhaps we would like them to be. I am struggling. Trying to make sense of the instructions that I've been given for this lighting kit. And maybe it's the dummy in me. I mean, I freely admit, dummy's right there in the title, that I am not seeing some obvious things. Or maybe it's in the madman lighting. Maybe because these instructions feel like they were written to a dummy by a madman. And it's like there's like one or two obvious steps here that are not being expressed. I'm trying to follow the pictures as well as best I can, and I've secured a 12-volt power source that's more than 1.5 amps, so I've got enough juice coming to it. The picture of the board is not matching the board. For some reason, either he's changed boards in the interim. All I can say is I know that Madman is no longer in existence. It has been bought out by Ralph, and I'm praying that Ralph will pick up this product and make sense of it. But see, here's a picture of the board. Well, it bears a close resemblance to the actual board, but once you flip it over, it does not. And there is supposed to be here you go, a flashing speed control that is supposed to be a push button on the back of the board. Well, this has a wired in button, and I thought that this wired in button was for the firing of the gun. That makes sense. That's a momentary switch that you would push to fire the wave motion gun, because it doesn't make any sense for that to be lit all the time. But no, this is something that is supposed to be the speed control for the flashing light. I'm guessing the flashing light has something to do with the wave motion gun. Whether it is, see, now in a perfect world, you would push a button, the ring of lights around the main LED would start slow and flash faster and faster and faster, and then it would kick over and light a bright light, and then the whole thing dies out. I think that's what they're shooting for here, but I don't see it. So I am going to follow the instructions letter for letter, try to see if I can do exactly what it is they're saying. But then again, there's no diagram here. There's a here. there's a very sparse diagram that shows what's supposed to happen, but then there's no diagram that says, hey, you know, when you're done with all this, hook the whole thing up to an on-off switch. And there's nothing that mentions, well, you know, the gun might need, you know, 10 minutes to recharge. I don't know. There's just not enough. There's something missing here. For some reason, I am getting like 2/3 of the instructions, and I'm not getting that last bit that's going to make it all make sense. So what I'm going to do is clean the decks here. I'm going to take the LEDs that I got from Evans Lighting this morning. I'm going to try to start wiring those into the guns because I know how that works, and that will hopefully get me a series of wires going down that I can run to this output here, and that will be my constant on lights, and those will be the lights that go to like these blisters on either side, and to the lights that go on the guns and the lights that go on the tower. And then I'm going to work myself backwards from the things that I know that I know how to do to the things I don't know how to do, and see if that helps. I've just spent the last couple of hours battling my confusion with something I don't understand by going back and doing something I do understand, and that is painting. So I've been painting the underbelly, which is red, but you know, it's many shades of red. So what I've done first is I went in and did a shadow coating or a panel coating, which is basically taking a dark color. Pre-shading is what they call it. You pre-shade because it's the shading that goes on under your top coat, and then you shade back on top of it. So the pre-shading is, and you can appreciate a good pre-shading, going back in over the panel lines with a darker red, and then over the bigger areas. Once the accents have all been painted in, you go back over the main body with a base red, and in this case I am using a mecha color from Vallejo called SC Red, which, you know, it's a mecha color, so they're used to the anime line, which this is an anime color, so it kind of fits. And it's actually giving me a very nice red. So what I did first is actually went in with a Tamiya, and I went in with the Tamiya Hull Red, which is a dark brownish red. It's not exactly a black because I didn't want to introduce any black accents to this. So it's a dark dark brownish red, and I went in and, you know, painted over the lines very roughly. And now I'm just going back over it with light coats of this mecha red to kind of bring the main panels back up. And that's all I'm doing. I've kind of got the pieces laid together. None of this is glued, obviously, but laid together so that the shading is all consistent and my colors don't vary from piece to piece. Okay, since I desperately want to end the day on a big success, I'll give you this. Come on. This is very temporary on a battery, so this is what's happening. Hold on. Okay, there you go. That's what I'm trying to show you. Got a light going out, and there'll be one on either side of the main stack there. And then that's the kind of thing I'm trying to carry down through all of the big guns as well. Well, welcome back. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week, and I got to tell you, it's the last day I really want to be working on this thing. I don't know why I'm having such difficulties with this. I mean, I'm backing up and painting now because painting I feel at least semi-competent to do. So what I've done is I've taken all the gray parts and I have put the dark German gray mixture with a little black in there to give me my darkest pre-shading. And then I'll come back with a light gray with a touch of blue. I mean, the cool side of a light gray over the panels to bring the hull sections back up to what I want my final finish to look like. Overnight, the red has dried. Now, maybe I didn't tell you, but after this was dried, I put a coat of flat over it just to protect it from scratches and whatnot. And I kind of like how that's looking. take it out of the light so you're not seeing through it. But it's giving me the red with just enough dinge in it. I may go over this one last time with the smoke, the Comart smoke, just to accentuate some panel lines here or there. I might even paint them in by hand just to keep them clean and neat, but, or at least more focused than they are. But I like it. I like how that turned out. And I'm using a similar technique, similar technique on the top gray parts. It's the lighting. It's the lighting that is bugging me. And the more I read of the Madman instructions, the less sense they seem to make. The idea is that there is a central bulb that is the wave motion gun with a spray of fiber optics around it like a halo that is supposed to give you the pre-firing effect. And I just don't think that when he made these instructions, he had ever seen the model. No, that's cruel. That's unnecessary. He didn't take the model into account, because how you're supposed to fit all of that resulting jacket through this hole is anybody's guess. And what are you supposed to do with that spray? You're just supposed to leave it in there, inside, loose inside the pocket there, like it's some sort of fiber optic lamp. I don't get that. So we're gonna have to play with that a lot more before I'm happy with the results there. And he goes on at some length about making the engine lights and how you should take red and yellow lights, hold them close together, and put a heat shrink over them. Well, dude, they've got orange bulbs. If you're going to shoot for orange, use an orange bulb. It's not rocket science. You're bundling two LEDs together to give you an orange effect, and then you're saying put fiber optics over that. Well, guess what? You're not going to end up getting an orange engine out of that. You're going to end up getting two engines, one that's more focused over the orange, the yellow bulb, and one that's more focused over the red bulb, so that when you look in those engines, you're going to see a yellow engine and a red engine. That's not how light works. It's kind of like, Han Solo. That's not how the Force works. That's not how light works. You can't, unless you are far enough away from it, you're not going to get a blend by putting two bulbs next to each other and then putting your fiber optics right on top of those bulbs. They're not going to blend. So, hey, orange bulbs, use them, look at them. And I've gotten better results just in my own trials. Now, I'm going to give the guy a break here. I'm going to say that Madman, this was done in 2012. Okay, 2012 is 2019 now. That's what, 7 years? SMLEDs may have come a long way in 7 years. Maybe you didn't know about them back then. Maybe they weren't, practical back then. I don't know. But one stinking orange LED, SMLED, put at the back of your, well, let me set this up. Okay, so here's the effect on the back engine. That is the orange bulb, the orange light coming out of the engine. Now, it's not going to light up the entire noonday sun. It's not meant to. It's not bright enough to do that. There's a big old honking piece of plastic between you and the bulb. You're trying to accomplish in real life what they do in anime, which is, that would have to be brighter than the sun to do it. But this is all accomplished with one orange bulb with a white shield behind it. Let me see that. Basically like that, and you glue that to the back of your clear plastic bit, and it is not bundled together out of several LED or a couple LEDs. Now I can tie that into the barely flickering circuit. I've seen T-lamps that flicker better than this. There's a flickering circuit on that board that is flickering in name only. It does not do a good job. But I can tie that into that and get the little flicker that I need, or that's being offered. I can also put one of these at the back of each engine and get a much more superior light than what they suggest, which is to use a bunch of needless fiber optic for that. I don't see what this guy's love affair with fiber optics is. But there you go, that's me. Okay, well, there's nothing like a little bit of measured success and a happy arrival in the mail to change my mood around. I have determined that apparently this will work on 9 volts. Don't mind the green because it's only there as a placeholder. But that seems to be the gun. It's flickering up to speed. I think it's flickering faster than the camera can catch it. But it's flickering up to speed. It will do a constant on eventually. It is taking a while to get there though. And then it cuts off and the main bulb fires. And it stays on for a really long time. So at least in practice, it looks like the wave motion gun is working. I just need to find a way to make this fit into this small part, because that's as big as the opening is going to be. So by the time you put the actual bulb right in there, I want to shoot down the barrel there, but once you do that, I got to figure out a way to make the green spark, or the sparkly bit, go around it. So working on that. But the other big news is I got my package from the UK. This is from a pal of mine named Jamie, who we worked out a trade. I sent him some templates. He sent me a model I couldn't find here in the States, at least not as cheaply as he could get it. So I'm going to take it all apart and see if what I got back in the mail on this end resembles what he sent on his end. Alrighty then, I've got all the wiring neatened up and down to 2 positive and a negative for this whole tower, and I am ready to light it up to show you how far at least I've gotten on that. Boom. There you go. That is the 3 light, well, the captain's cabin at the top, 2 side lights, the 2 main bridge lights, and then there is a rear observation light there. And now that is all ready to sink down into the gun deck, what I'm calling the gun deck. It's the deck that's got all the guns on it. So let's do that, and then once that is done, I will be ready to do the probably the highlighting paint passes. That'll probably be the next thing to do. Put that down separate. Actually, probably wouldn't hurt at this point to go ahead and give this a dull coat. I'm not worried about the dull coat, what it's hazing over those clear green pieces. I'm really not worried about that. There's not like there's a clear interior that you can see into. It's only what it's going to do basically is frost that glass, which does not offend me in the slightest. That's looking pretty good. Let's try one without the lights here and see how it looks. Oh, that's nice. That's pretty. That's the iconic green lighting I was expecting. Alrighty, I'm back from running errands and all kinds of choring that I had to do, and was going to do some yard work today, but freak it, it's 100 degrees outside. It is literally 100 degrees outside on the beginning of October. So no work will be done outside today. Now it's rumored that tomorrow is supposed to be a high of 70. So I don't know what's going to happen overnight. Probably the end of the world with dogs and cats living together to get down that low. But be that as it may, I think a good place to wrap up today would be to get lights into these 3 gun placements that seem to work well coming down the tower, and I think these will probably be even more, cross my fingers, simpler to do, because I don't have to build as I go down. I simply have to take these apart, pull these bits out. I've already drilled them out, and run the wiring back down through. Okay, here's the first of the 3 guns. Very nice. And I can fish those down through the deck and have all kinds of room to wire. Yay! And you can't, the way those two, the way the stem out to the lamp encapsulates that stem, you don't even see any wiring whatsoever. Nice. There you go. There's all three guns with the little green eyes on them. I know the afternoon sun is really beating in, so it's tough to see, but there you go. That's all three guns. And the tower over there, I think that puts it... No, I've got two more green lights up in those little bulges on the front of the lower hull. And that'll be all of the green lighting that needs to get done. But this is coming along nicely, I think. And this is the week that was on the Yamato. Not the most productive of weeks, but then again, I did want it to take a couple. I didn't want to try to get it all done in 1 week. I am very proud of this sub-assembly. Well, actually, battleship assembly. It's not a sub, but it's a battleship. So, a battleship assembly. And looking forward to getting some brighter gray paint on that next week. Next week's going to be a bit weird. I'll go ahead and warn you that in advance, because I probably will just do 2 or 3 days next week and then cut it short, because next weekend I am the wind. I am not here. So I'll work on it for a few days. I might work on it some this weekend, knowing that I have 2 less days, 3 less days next week to work on it. You don't need to know that. That's internal bookkeeping. That's my scheduling. I'm saying that so that I can remember it. So until next week, whatever day that turns out to be, when we will get back to this, get some light gray on it, get the rest of the lights in it, try to finagle this wave motion circuit. You be good. You be good to each other, and we'll see you here next time.